I'm 35M, and my parents divorced when I was 17. My dad struggled with alcohol and drug addiction, and my mom eventually left him, which I totally understood and supported. Living with him was impossible. He wasn't violent but verbally abusive, and he spent all our money on his habits. That was the last straw for my mom. After the divorce, my dad spiraled. He nearly overdosed and ended up in the ICU. I was living with my mom at the time, but I was scared that my dad would die, so I moved back with him and my uncle's family. My mom was disappointed but let me make my choice. Losing my mom, most of his friends, going broke, nearly dying finally got through to my dad, and he promised he would get better for me. It was hard to watch, but he actually turned things around. My uncle paid for everything: rehab, therapy, medical bills, and after about 5 years, my dad was clean and somewhat healthy again. He even apologized to my mom, and she forgave him, though she told me later it was only for my sake so that they could be civil at future events like my graduation or wedding. Over those years, I kept in contact with my mom, regularly met with her. She had moved on and met a great guy, who she eventually married. She was much happier, and I was happy for her. I thought we had a pretty good relationship. That changed when I was 23. My mom asked me to come over, and she told me she was still angry and disappointed that I chose my dad over her after the divorce. She said I was ungrateful for everything she went through, putting up with my dad's shit, and then she hit me with something that still pisses me off today. She told me she could see me becoming a drunk and drug addict like my dad because I stayed close to him. I don't drink, I don't do drugs to this day, and I had no idea where that even came from. I was floored. I thought we had moved past all that, but apparently, she'd been harboring resentment for years. Then, she said that she wanted to go no contact with me because being around me brought back too many bad memories of my dad. She said she had found peace and happiness, and I was a reminder of all the pain she'd been through. I didn't know what to say except, okay. I later found out from a cousin on her side that her whole family was pissed at me for staying with my dad back then, and they all went no contact with me for her sake, saying that I betrayed her. I haven't seen or heard from my mom since that day. Fast forward to now. My dad passed away 2 years ago from a heart attack, a result of his years of addiction. Despite being clean for over a decade, he had lingering medical issues. I recently got married, and my wife posted some pictures from the wedding on Facebook. My wife said a woman claiming to be a cousin contacted her. I looked at the message and it was cousin from my mom's side, asking if it was really me in the pictures with my full name. I told my wife to ignore it, but then I got a call from my uncle later that same day, saying that my mom showed up at his house. For context, the house where my uncle lives currently used to be the home where I grew up with my parents. My uncle said she asked him to arrange a meeting between us, saying she wants to apologize to me face to face. He told me he can set it up if I want. Honestly, after all these years, I feel nothing for her except maybe slight resentment for thinking that I would turn out as an addict. I was going to say no right away, but my wife thinks that's a shitty thing to do, and I should at least hear her out, let her apologize, and then go back to never seeing her again if I want. She says despite what she did shield me from most of dad's addictions growing up. Now I'm having second thoughts. Am I the asshole if I refuse to meet her? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. NTA. But I am wondering if you're an only child. Her reasoning might be that since you got married, you might also be having kids, and she wants to be a grandmother. You have to think about what her ulterior motive might be, and this is what I come up with. OP. One of my reasonings is also this. She never cared before that cousin probably told her about the wedding pictures. Commenter 2. NTA. I think you were very kind to be there for your dad when he needed you, even though he should have been the one taking care of you. It was really cruel of your mom to punish you for that kindness, and whether or not you want to hear her out is your decision. I do like your wife's attitude that you can hear your mom out and then decide if you want to forgive her or not. But what your mom did was shitty, and it would be understandable if you didn't want to talk to her. Commenter 3. I agree with everything except your take on the wife's attitude. I think she's pushing her own feelings, not supporting OP with his. He doesn't owe his mother hearing her out, just so she feels less guilty. OP. My wife is just looking out for me so that I don't have any regrets. I know she will fully support me if I say I do not want to meet her. Commenter 4. NTA. You have to go with your gut. It has been 10 years, and she has discovered that you didn't become an addict and instead have created a happy life. You're married, which means there could be grandkids in the future. Are you happy without her? If you've moved on without that side of the family, if you've created your own happy family, then why rock that boat? Your wife may not be able to let it go, though, and if you turn your mother down, you're going to have a lot of flying monkeys contacting you and your wife to tell you how cruel you're being. I couldn't deal with that, personally. I don't do drama. She made a choice, and you've respected it. I'd say no and be ready with the block feature. Update 1. I didn't expect the amount of comments I got on the first post. Thank you to everyone who weighed in, whether you agreed with me or not. There were so many different perspectives, and I've taken time to think about everything. First, I want to talk about this. A few of you said I abandoned my mom when I went to live with Dad. It looks that way when I think about it now, however. I feel I never abandoned her in any way. I loved my mom dearly, and I loved my dad too. When she told me she was divorcing Dad, I helped her pack. I left with her as I thought at the time Dad was a lost cause. I went back about 7 months after the divorce when my dad was fighting for his life. That was when he promised me he would change and get help. I chose to stay with Dad after getting permission from Mom. As I said in my first post, she was disappointed but agreed Dad needed me. Even after I chose to stay with my dad and uncle, I always stayed in contact with her. My mom and dad lived about 20 minutes apart, and I made sure to see my mom regularly, 4-5 times a week, at least. I would talk to her every day too. We went on trips together, ate meals together, and hung out as much as we could. When she moved in with her new husband, who I will call John, she always included me in her new family's life. John was good to me too. For all that time, there was not even one inclination of the resentment Mom had for me when she blindsided me with the decision to go no contact. I was completely shocked. She never expressed any anger or frustrations toward me. We never argued, and she never showed she was upset about my relationship with my dad until that day. After she blocked me from everyone, I tried for a couple of years to reconnect, but eventually gave up when I moved out of the city. On to the update. A lot of you told me to meet her for closure, while others said not to bother. After thinking about it for a while, I had decided to meet her and was going to tell my uncle to set up a meeting with her, but before I could tell him, my uncle called me again, 3 days after my mom showed up at his house. He told me she came by again and gave him a letter for me, and she apologized for bothering him and that she wouldn't be coming by again, and she didn't want to raise my hopes unnecessarily and hoped I would understand after I read the letter. Uncle said she sounded very sincere. I asked my uncle to send me pictures of the letter. It's not that long, and I'll summarize the important bits. The letter was a mix of apologies and well wishes. She wrote she was sorry for how she treated me back then, especially for saying I'd turn out like my dad. She said she was going through some relationship issues with John, and then seeing Dad getting better made her feel bitter because Dad never tried for her. She thought her second marriage was failing, and everyone around her was happy while she was miserable. She said she listened to some bad advice, and she regrets it. She said she regrets taking her anger all on me when she should have gotten help. She said she made up lies to her side of the family so that they side with her. I do not know these lies. Is this what she only wrote? She said she got help couple of years after she went no contact but was too ashamed to reach out to me. She saw the wedding pictures and is happy for me, wishing me the best in my life. She wrote that while she initially wanted to meet me, after some reflection and with her family's advice, she realized it was for selfish reasons and for her own sake only. She apologized again and said it's better if we keep things the way they are. She ended the letter by saying she's happy and she doesn't want to drag up the past. She apologizes once more and wrote she won't contact me again for both our sakes and asked me not to contact her as well and wished me and my wife well. So there's that. Honestly, it's probably the best outcome and I'm at peace with it. I am happy with my life and I am glad Mom is happy with her life. Like she asked, I am not going to contact her, but I will keep my door open if she wants to meet in the future. I also realized how stupid I was to hold on to my resentment of her comment about me becoming an addict. I also want to address the comments that said my wife was overstepping. My wife knows all about my past and about my mom. She is a kind soul who sees the best in people. Like I said in a comment in my first post, she was just looking out for me. She wanted me to have no regrets. She did apologize for saying it would be shitty not to meet Mom, but it's all good. We both know each other's boundaries. We communicate well. Right now, we're planning our honeymoon, and life is good. Thanks for all the supportive messages and comments, truly appreciated. Bye. Relevant comments. Commenter. No, she was just continuing to be selfish because she doesn't want to be uncomfortable. This was the best outcome. Commenter. She apologized again and said it's better if we keep things the way they are. She ended the letter by saying she's happy and she doesn't want to drag up the past. She apologizes once more and wrote she won't contact me again for both our sakes and asked me not to contact her as well and wished me and my wife well. Sounds like she's just as self-absorbed as ever. What a trashy woman. Update 2. Well, I thought the story was over, but here we go again. A month after I posted that last update, I was dead set on moving forward with life, honeymoon planning, work, and just enjoying the peace that came after my mom's letter. For once, I felt like the whole drama of my family was behind me. But of course, life has a way of sneaking in curveballs when you least expect them. So, I'm sitting at home last Saturday, minding my own business, when my phone starts blowing up with notifications from, of all things, Facebook. I don't even use Facebook like that, but apparently, my wife had posted a cute little honeymoon countdown. Something cheesy like, 10 days until paradise with my love. Harmless, right? Except in the comments, my mom's cousin, the same one who first reached out, decided to drop a little bombshell. She wrote, "Looks like someone in the family is holding on to secrets." I immediately knew something was off. My wife, being the lovely, nosy person she is, asks what that's supposed to mean. This woman, without skipping a beat, replies, "Maybe he should tell you who's really coming to the wedding." The wedding was months ago. What the hell was she talking about? Before I could even process what was happening, my phone buzzes again. It's a text from my uncle. The text simply reads, "Call me ASAP." Now, my uncle is not the type to send cryptic messages. He's the straightforward kind of guy who'll just say whatever's on his mind. So, my gut told me something was seriously wrong. I call him, and he picks up right away. He doesn't even bother with a hello. "She's coming to see you," he says. "Your mom." What? I almost dropped my phone. Why? She said she was done. She didn't want contact. What changed? I don't know all the details, but I think she found out something. She's on her way now. Just be prepared. I didn't have time to react. 10 minutes later, there's a knock at the door. My wife looks at me like, "Is this happening?" I felt my stomach churn because, of course, it's her. My mom, in the flesh, standing at the door. She looks different, but not in a way I expected. She's thinner, older, obviously, but there's something frantic in her eyes, like she's not sure whether to be apologetic or furious. For a second, I just stood there, speechless. My wife was frozen too. This wasn't how we imagined our lazy Saturday going. Then, the first words out of her mouth were, "I need to talk to you. It's important." I wanted to slam the door, but curiosity got the best of me. I let her in. She didn't even bother with small talk. No, "How are you?" or "Congratulations on the wedding." Just straight to the point. I was wrong. About everything. Okay, now I'm intrigued, but still pissed. Wrong about what? I asked, barely keeping the frustration out of my voice. She takes a deep breath and blurts out, "John cheated on me. And now I realize everything I said, everything I did to you, was because of him." I didn't know what to say to that. I just stood there, staring at her like she was speaking another language. What does that have to do with me? I finally asked, trying to keep calm. She starts pacing around my living room, explaining that John had been unfaithful for years. Years. Apparently, during the time she cut me off, she was spiraling. She felt abandoned, trapped in a failing marriage, and instead of dealing with that, she lashed out at me. She said that staying with my dad was just the scapegoat for all the anger she felt toward John but couldn't express. She had convinced herself I was part of the reason her life had fallen apart. I honestly felt a mix of things at that point: anger, pity, confusion. Part of me wanted to scream at her for coming into my house with all this drama now, after all these years. But another part of me wondered if this was what I'd been waiting for all along. The real explanation, the real apology. But she wasn't done yet. "I came because I don't want you to hate me," she said, sitting down, looking defeated. "I know I messed up, but I want to fix this, or at least try. I don't want to die knowing we never made things right." That hit me hard. Suddenly, it wasn't just about the past anymore, it was about the future. Did I want to spend the rest of my life angry, holding on to this grudge? Was I willing to let her back in and risk more pain? Or was it too late to fix what had been broken so long ago? I told her I needed time to think. She left, and now, I'm sitting here, writing this update, still unsure of what the hell I'm supposed to do next. On one hand, she's clearly hurting, and part of me feels like maybe it's time to let go of all the anger and just try. But on the other hand, I've built a life without her. I've moved on. Do I really want to open this door again, knowing there's a chance it could slam shut in my face? Honestly, I don't know what my next move is. I told my wife everything, and she's supportive, as always. But even she's torn. She thinks I should consider forgiving her, but only if I'm ready. Update 3. I wasn't planning on updating again, but after everything that's happened, I feel like I owe it to myself and to everyone following this mess to close the loop. So, after my mom's surprise visit, I spent days going back and forth. I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept replaying her words, her face, and that defeated look in her eyes. Part of me was tempted to just let it all go, to forgive her, move on, and finally have some peace. But another part of me, the part that had carried her betrayal for a decade, couldn't shake the feeling that maybe I was being played again. Here's where it gets wild. A week after my mom's visit, I get a call from an unknown number. It's late, around 11 p.m., and normally I wouldn't pick up, but something told me to answer. On the other end is John, that John, my mom's husband. His voice is shaky, almost frantic, and he says, "We need to talk. I have information you should know about your mom." Now, I'm immediately suspicious. Why the hell is this guy calling me? But against my better judgment, I agree to meet him at a coffee shop the next day. My wife thought I was crazy, but I had to know what he was going to say. So there I am, sitting across from this guy who, for all intents and purposes, was a non-factor in my life for years. He looks rough, baggy eyes, disheveled clothes, the whole deal. He starts talking, and what he says leaves me absolutely floored. Turns out, the whole "John cheated on me" story? It was true, kind of. But here's the kicker. My mom knew about it the entire time. In fact, according to John, she was cheating too. Apparently, their marriage had been an open secret within certain circles, with both of them carrying on affairs while pretending to be this perfect, suburban couple. But that's not even the worst part. The reason John reached out to me was that my mom, after years of silence and regret, had a full-on breakdown after seeing my wedding photos. She had told John that reconnecting with me was the only way she could feel whole again. But the thing is, John didn't buy it. He thought my mom's sudden change of heart wasn't about guilt or love, it was about control. "She's always had to have the upper hand," John said, sipping his cold coffee. "And when you got married, when you started your life without her, she lost that control. She couldn't handle it." I felt sick. Everything clicked into place: the manipulation, the sudden no contact, the lies to her side of the family. It was all about power, about making sure she controlled the narrative of her life. And when I chose my dad, I threw a wrench in her plans. John told me that after my mom saw the wedding pictures, she started unraveling. She admitted to him that the letter she sent wasn't meant to apologize, was a test, a way to see if I would come crawling back to her, begging for closure. When I didn't immediately respond, she panicked and showed up at my door. And here's the real kicker. John warned me that if I did let her back in, she wouldn't stop at just reconnecting. She would slowly try to insert herself back into my life, piece by piece, until she had some kind of hold over me again. "She'll never be satisfied with an apology and moving on," John said. "She wants back in, fully, and she'll use your guilt to make it happen." I sat there, stunned. Everything made sense: the years of manipulation, the way she twisted things to make herself the victim. I thanked John for telling me the truth, and as I left that coffee shop, I realized something that hit me like a brick to the chest. My mom wasn't trying to apologize for the past. She was trying to rewrite it. I went home and told my wife everything. She was just as shocked, but in the end, we both agreed this was the closure I needed. Not the fake, forced apology my mom had written in that letter, but the realization that some people don't change. They just find new ways to manipulate the people they've hurt. That night, I made a decision. I blocked my mom's number, deleted her email, and unfriended every last one of those relatives who went no contact with me years ago. I wasn't going to wait around for her to show up again or play any more games. I was done. And here's the thing, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. If anything, I feel free. Free from the guilt, from the endless what-ifs, from wondering if I should have done things differently. I made the choices I had to make, and I stand by them.